The storm raged over the mountainside that night, as if nature itself had decided to test the strength of every soul clinging to life beneath its shadow. The cold wind screamed through the trees, shaking their fragile branches, while rain lashed down like sharp whips against the earth. At the foot of the great mountain, where silence usually ruled, a broken cry echoed, low, desperate, and nearly lost beneath the thunder. A man lay sprawled across the mud and stones, blood running from a gash on his forehead, his breath shallow, his body trembling with exhaustion and pain. He was alone, invisible to the world, and yet fate had decided he would not die there. Because at that very moment, a young girl, barefoot and soaked to the bone, stumbled through the storm, clutching a bundle of firewood to her chest. Her name was Amina, the daughter of poverty, a soul life had burdened far too early, yet her heart was still soft enough to stop when she heard the faint sound of suffering. She could have walked past, most people would have, for they had their own survival to think of, but Amina dropped her firewood into the mud and rushed toward the stranger. She didn't know his name, his story, or his worth. She only saw a man fighting for breath at the foot of the mountain, and in that instant, she decided his life mattered. Rose, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of helping strangers without expecting anything in return, please take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope today, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Royal Stories. Rose. The man's face was pale, his eyes barely open as he whispered incoherently. Amina bent over him, shivering, and tried to shake him awake. Her hands were thin, roughened by labor, but her touch was steady, urgent, and warm compared to the icy night. She managed to drag him, inch by inch, toward the small wooden shack she called home, a fragile shelter standing at the mountain's edge. Every step was agony for her fragile frame, but she refused to leave him behind. By the time they reached the shack, her arms were raw with bruises, her dress torn, and her lungs on fire. Still, she laid him down on her thin mat, lit the one candle she owned, and began to tend to his wounds with nothing more than boiled water and torn strips of her only spare cloth. The hours that followed were a battle between life and death. The man's fever rose dangerously, his body trembling as if the cold and pain were devouring him from within. Amina sat beside him all night, placing damp cloths on his forehead, whispering prayers she wasn't sure anyone was listening to. She gave him the last of her bread, dipped in weak broth, forcing him to swallow though her own stomach cried with hunger. She sacrificed her blanket, covering his shivering frame while she sat against the wall, hugging her knees to keep from freezing. For 2 long days and nights, Amina became the guardian of a life she didn't know belonged to someone the world called powerful and wealthy. When at last the man's eyes opened fully, they were filled with confusion and disbelief. He was not used to waking in such poverty, in a shack that smelled of firewood and damp earth. He tried to sit, but weakness pulled him back down. Amina rushed to his side, urging him to rest. She did not ask who he was, did not question why a man like him was wandering the mountains alone. For her, he was only a soul who needed saving. That humility, that unshaken kindness, left him silently staring at her for a long time, though he said nothing. The man was Nicholas Harrington, a billionaire known for his empire of companies spread across the world, a man the media painted as untouchable, feared, and sometimes even heartless. He had come to the mountains seeking solitude, trying to escape a life of noise, greed, and betrayal, only to suffer a fall that nearly ended him. Yet here, in this shack, a girl who owned nothing had given him everything she had. For the first time in years, Nicholas felt the raw touch of selflessness. Amina never guessed the truth. To her, he was simply the traveler, a man who had stumbled into her fate. Days turned into a week as she helped him regain his strength. She washed his wounds, cooked him small meals from whatever she could gather, and even sang to herself softly as she worked, songs of longing and hope that Nicholas listened to in silence, moved in ways he didn't fully understand. Poverty had stripped Amina of worldly comfort, but it had not stolen her dignity or her light. When Nicholas finally stood again, strong enough to leave, he looked at her with an intensity that made her shift uncomfortably. She thought he would thank her and vanish from her life forever, as all strangers did. But in his heart, a decision had been carved as solid as the mountain itself. This girl would not be left behind in the shadows where he had found her. Weeks later, when luxury cars climbed the mountain road and wealthy men in suits knocked on her shack's door, Amina thought it was a cruel mistake. But Nicholas stepped forward, dressed now in power and authority, and told her the truth. He was not just a traveler. He was Nicholas Harrington, a man whose wealth could change nations. And he had come back for her. The shock nearly broke her. She felt unworthy, too small for the life he was offering. But Nicholas saw in her what the world had never given him: purity, kindness without condition, and the power to heal what money never could. He built her a new home, gave her the chance at education, at dreams she never dared to whisper. Yet even with all this, Amina's heart remained humble. She told him that riches didn't matter to her, only the chance to live with dignity and to help others as she had helped him. And so, what began at the foot of the mountain became a story that people whispered with awe. A poor girl who once gathered firewood now walked through halls of marble, not as a beggar but as someone who had earned the deepest respect of a man who had everything yet was saved by someone who had nothing. Amina never forgot her roots, and Nicholas never let her light fade. Together, they turned their story into a mission, building schools, shelters, and hope for those who had been forgotten. Rose, if this story touched your heart, if you believe kindness can truly change the world, please like this video, share it with your loved ones, subscribe to Royal Stories, and leave a comment below. Your support helps us bring more stories of hope and inspiration to you. Rose. Sparkle's special request to comment: what would you have done if you were in Amina's place that stormy night? Would you have stopped to help the stranger at the foot of the mountain?